Good afternoon. Thanks for a few minutes of your time today. Just a quick reminder. Last week, all of you got by email and in paper form an invitation to an event on January 26th entitled Visioning Day. This is a day in which we as a community will create a vision statement for the future. Now, at first glance, you might say, well, January 26th is also snow coming. I got a lot of things to do. It's my weekend. Let me say to you right now, any student who can make the time to join us that morning, your voice matters, and it matters greatly. So we would very much appreciate having you there. I think you would find it to be a worthwhile and engaging exercise. We'll have hopefully 200 people from across our community there helping us shape our future. So of all the ways you can spend your Saturday morning, if you could join us, we'd be grateful. On that note, and perhaps in the context of thinking about reflections and the work of Dr. King and many others, I'd like to spend a few minutes talking to you about school values. What's a value? It's a principle. It's a deeply held belief. It is something that binds our community together. And it seems to me that from time to time, to strengthen our community, we would be well served to remind ourselves that which we value. Why today? It's the start of a new year, close to the start of a new term. And so anytime we have a time to start new, we have an opportunity to reflect and think about what we did previously, what we might want to continue in this year, and how we might want to grow, whether we're doing so individually or as a community. I'd like to start you off with a quick story. I mentioned previously to you this fall that when I arrived in college in the fall of 1987, I was 17 years old. And I quickly ascertained that at the college I attended, and the great Dr. Foley attended as well, we had some very strongly held values, one of which we talked about previously was the honor code. The other that was made clear to me very early on was that at my college, we very much valued human interconnectedness. And this was expressed through what was known as a speaking tradition. What's a speaking tradition? It was a very simple tradition that played out thousands of times a day across the school. And it was very simple. Anytime I walked across campus, anytime I encountered a professor, a member of the staff, a classmate, whether they were known or unknown to me, I was to say hello. And so it was. Throughout the time there, my 4 years, every day, time and again, I always said hello. And in response, I received a hello. Now, a few weeks into my freshman year, I was walking across the campus late one afternoon, all by myself, and I could see, maybe 100 yards away, the school president walking toward me. Now, Dr. Wilson had no idea who I was. I wouldn't expect him to. I knew who he was. And as we approached, I, of course, said, "Hello, Dr. Wilson." And he said, "Hello." Now, on the one hand, you might think he's just being polite. Fast forward a few weeks later. The way I made my money, my spending money in college, was I waited tables, I lifeguarded, and I also signed up to serve meals at school events. Well, I was assigned to serve a meal at Dr. Wilson's house. And there I was, serving the meal. He walked in the kitchen. He said, "Oh, we met on campus a few weeks ago. What's your name?" I explained my name, got a conversation. So it was. Well, from that moment forward, I never had much opportunity to spend time with Dr. Wilson. But every time I saw him on campus, maybe a few times a year, there was always the hello. And so it was. I realized that this was something that the community valued tremendously. Come fast forward to St. Andrews and think about ourselves as a community. And you say, what is it we value? Well, you don't need to go any farther than to look at our school website. And here are our school values. I've underlined some points that I'd like to focus on today. First and foremost, the notion that this is a safe and inclusive community. You should feel emotionally safe. You should feel physically safe. You should know that there is nothing in that regard that you need to worry about here. The second sentence is perhaps, for me, the most telling. Our values are vibrantly present in the lives of every member of the St. Andrews family every single day. Now, I wasn't here when these words were chosen, but it's not lost upon me that whoever wrote these chose the word family. Of all the words they could have chosen, family says a lot, especially about a school. It's also not lost upon me that it says every single day and every member. And so it is our expectation that we express our values every day among all of us. Not some of us, not some of the time, but all of us. And there they are. Truth, honesty, and integrity, as expressed through our honor code, which we talked about before, and the dignity of every human being. Let's talk about truth, honesty, and integrity, because I think it's always worth reminding ourselves about the honor code that plays out in your lives every day. It plays out in mine every day as well. You see, when I go to the administrative building to get my coffee every morning, there's a little coffee machine. I see some of you in there from time to time as well, getting your coffee or tea. Now, I walk up and make myself a cup of coffee. There's nobody watching. Nobody knows what I'm doing. And yet, there's a little sign there. It says 50 cents. Even with the honor code, please deposit payment the tray below. Now, who's going to know if I leave 50 cents below? Nobody. Okay? Who's going to know? I'm going to know. And so it is, I have a little card there. And every time I get a cup of coffee, I drink a lot of coffee, I make a little check mark. Now, at some point, I got to add all those up using some basic math skills, and I have to go give Mrs. Deere whatever money I owe at school. Now, I could at any moment take that card, rip it up, put up a new card, but I don't. Why is that? Because it's my responsibility. That's a word we're going to come back to in a minute. I want to show you a video. I'm going to introduce you to a gentleman named Richard Pimentel. Richard Pimentel is a veteran of the Vietnam War. And he has a lot of interesting things to say. But I especially want you to focus on what he has to say about the word responsibility, because it ties in to my thoughts on the dignity of each human being.
I was so scared. I was 8 years old. I hid behind my grandmother. Back in the days of food stamps. I remember we went to the store and we were getting these groceries, and Grandma was taking these little coupons off and giving them to the clerk. And this man looked over and very loudly said, "Will you look at that? Will you look at all that good food that woman has? My family doesn't have good food like that." And he says, "And I'm paying for that. Old woman, how are you ever going to pay me back for all I've done for you? How are you ever going to pay society back for everything that we have done for you?" My grandmother pulled me out from behind her, and she put her hands on my shoulders, and here's what she said to me. "I will never be able to pay you back. I will never be able to pay society back. But do you see this child? Someday this child will pay you back in ways that you cannot imagine." I didn't believe her then, but she believed in me. I learned leadership by being a good follower. The leaders in my life have asked me to do some of the most difficult things. I had a leader that asked me to risk my life in Vietnam. We were up on this hill, and we were trapped, and we were outnumbered 20 to 1. They were coming up to kill us. And they radioed us and said, "You're going to die because we can't get to you because of the fog. But if we blow up half the hill, you can go down that half and get away. But we need 5 of you to stay back and slow up the enemy so they don't flank the ones that are escaping." Really? Who would that be? And Sergeant Parker came to us and he said, "We have to do this." I said, "We what?" He says, "It's our responsibility." I said, "Responsibility?" He said, "You know what responsibility is, Richard? It's a word made up of 2 words. the word response and the word ability. Responsibility isn't what someone puts on you. Responsibility isn't your job description. Responsibility isn't the paper you sign. We all find ourselves looking at situations, and we all find ourselves with abilities. And what we have to ask is, given my abilities, what then will be my response to those abilities? Do we have the ability to slow them up? Do we have the ability to save these lives? We do. So what is our response to that ability? I had a leader that talked me into never retiring and working till the day I die. We adopted 4 little disabled girls in December, ages 9 to 4. I'm 66 years old. This was not my idea for my golden years. But they were going to split them all up if we didn't take them. We were the only ones who could take them. And I asked my wife, why do you think I should do this? And she looked at me and she said, it's our responsibility. And did we have the ability to do it? Yeah. And what was our response to that ability? To do it. What abilities do you have? And more importantly, what is your response? I have a little assignment. I want you to think about it. I want you to go out. I want you to find 3 people on Monday. And I want you to get 3 people to believe in you. On Friday, I want you to go out. And I want you to get 3 people to believe in themselves. I want you to ask yourself this question. Did I feel more like the leader I want to be on Monday? Or did I feel more like the leader I want to be on Friday? Leaders do not get people to believe in them. Leaders find ways to get people to believe in themselves. This year, believe in somebody. And my friends, how will these people pay you back for all you've done for them? I'll tell you how they will pay you back in ways that you cannot imagine.
Responsibility. I believe that everybody in this room has the ability to uphold school values. Given that ability, what will be our response? To illustrate my point, I'd like to share a story with you about a young man named Sant. Sant Sanatasai was a student of mine from Thailand. And over the years, I've had the opportunity to work with many students from Thailand and Vietnam. And I noticed one thing about every one of them. If they were a student in my class, as they walked out of the class, without fail and without expectation, they said simply to me, thank you. Hundreds and hundreds of times it's happened to me. Not long after I realized this pattern, I had the opportunity to visit Vietnam and Thailand, something I did every year for about 20 years. And I asked Sant's parents, I said, I want to tell you what I've observed in Sant and his classmates. And they smiled at me and said, yep. I said, is that something you taught him? Is that an expectation? What is it about him, your family, or your culture? And they simply said, it's none of that. It's what we value as a culture. And Sant understands that. So, of course, as my own children have gotten a little bit older, I've said to them, much to their chagrin sometimes, when you leave the class, I want you to say thank you to the teacher. Now, do they do it? I don't know. But they know, because we talked about it enough, that it's something we value. So given your abilities, and given our abilities as a community, which are extraordinary, what is our response when it comes to school values? I believe that in this room, there's an amazing array of talent that is capable of doing things that aren't possible elsewhere. And so together, as a school, we'll get stronger when we remind ourselves about our school values. With that, thanks a lot. Have a great day.